I know you all are so excited for Hogwarts Legacy, but I also know you have some concerns. In today's video, we're going to talk all about the 5 biggest concerns I have for Hogwarts Legacy and how Avalanche can avoid them. People of the internet, RetroRaconteur here. If we're meeting for the first time, you guys know I'm just a dad who loves games and the stories they tell. We post videos every week here on YouTube and also stream over on Twitch. Pretty soon I'm going to be doing a playthrough over there on the Twitch channel, guys, of all the Harry Potter video games, at least all that I can find anyway. Head on over there and make sure you follow the stream, though, so you won't miss any of those updates. Now, I'm a pretty optimistic person, and if you haven't been able to tell from my other videos on the channel here, I am pretty hyped for Hogwarts Legacy. This game seems to be in a style that Harry Potter fans have wanted for years. That being said, there are definitely some concerns with the game. I'm sure you have many as well. In fact, I've read a bunch of your concerns. There's enough negativity in our world already on a day-to-day basis, so instead of just leaving it with a concern, I'm going to try and put a positive spin on each of these and say how I think Avalanche can actually turn these concerns into a positive. Look, make no mistake, the hype for this game is through the roof. I know because so many of you guys comment on these videos to let me know how pumped you are. And of course, I share in your enthusiasm for this game. The trailer has been viewed more than 15 million times. There's a subreddit with new hopes and ideas posted daily. And speaking of the trailer, while we wait for a new one or even just new screenshots, what would you guys like playing during these videos of mine? Should we just stick with the trailer again and again? Screenshots maybe, perhaps me just talking to the camera? Let me know what you guys think, because I am totally down to spice it up and switch things up a bit. Hopefully we'll get new info soon anyway and we can just show that, but until then, I'm curious to see what you all think. So let me know in the comments. At this point, there are just so many unknowns with the game. We don't really have much to go off of at this point. There's really 3 big pieces of media or PR, I guess you could say, that we have so far, and that is number 1, the official FAQ on the website, the trailer itself, as well as a PlayStation blog post. As diehard fans of the Wizarding world, I think it's important we find ways to keep the hype, remain constructive with our suggestions, but to also try our best to keep expectations in check. I don't want us to be set up for a situation where we won't accept anything less than a perfect game with every single detail we've always wanted. Because as much as I love seeing the ideas you all have each and every week on all these videos, there's just no way they're going to be able to fit all of that into this game. There's just no way. In developing any game, there are compromises that must be made, and I do think most of you out there realize this. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't wish for the moon. If you want to hope for a fully explorable Hogwarts with branching narrative paths, best-in-class gameplay, Quidditch, Diagon Alley, young Dumbledore, and a story with side quests that rival The Witcher, then sure, go for it. I have plenty of hopes myself. Heck, I made a whole video about it. But at the same time, I think we need to be careful not to set ourselves up for disappointment. It's important to remember Avalanche is taking on a massive task, trying to please millions of fans in what is a very ambitious project for them. I don't think it's a knock on Avalanche for me to say they just don't have much experience in this genre. They do have plenty of experience working with other big-time franchises like they do with the Disney Infinity series, but not specifically open-world action RPGs. In order for them to pull this off, here are my 5 biggest concerns and what I think they can do to make it a positive and not a negative. Number 1, a poor story. Look, we open every video on the channel here by saying, I'm a dad who loves games and the stories they tell. Story is really important to me in games, but even more so than the story within the game itself, the story that we tell ourselves and the story around our lives, how the game changes us, is equally important. But as for Hogwarts Legacy, any game drawing huge inspiration from a book series obviously needs to make the story a top priority. Now, there's kind of pros and cons with this here. First of all, there's an enormous amount of source material to pull from here. Ultimately, though, I think the key to this game's success will be how capable Avalanche is of balancing their own original material, but also staying true to the canon. And this is just no easy task here. If they go too much on the side of their own stuff, then longtime fans could feel the game is a disservice to the original works. And if they play it too safe, sticking to what we already know about the Wizarding world, then players will say it's repetitive and not unique. The devs are certainly saying all the right things so far. In Adrian Ropp's PlayStation blog post, he said the following, quote, I like to say that what we are giving fans is something familiar in a way they have never seen. That quote alone tells me they understand the balancing act they've been tasked with. In order for Hogwarts Legacy to have a strong original story that's steeped in wizarding lore, they'll need strong supporting characters. The original series had a huge cast of strong supporting characters that became just as beloved as Harry Potter himself, in some cases even more so than Harry. It's also crucial for there to be a strong antagonistic force, and hopefully there's room for morally gray characters as well. It's important for the main conflict to carry significance and weight, but hopefully it's not just another save the world and defeat the Dark Wizard story we've already seen play out in the books. Number 2, boring or repetitive spellcasting. As charming as some of the original Harry Potter video games were, most of them suffer from what the internet likes to refer to as Call of Potter. If you're not familiar with that term, essentially many of the spell battles turned into third-person shooting games that grow quickly repetitive and ultimately feel like just another generic shooting game. The Wii version of Order of the Phoenix managed to switch this up somewhat by taking advantage of the Wii motion controls. For Avalanche to avoid this pitfall with Hogwarts Legacy, they'll need to start by having a variety of different spells in the game. Stupefy and Flipendo shouldn't be the end-all, be-all all the time. It's okay for some battles to be fast and aggressive, yet there should also be scenarios where a more slow-paced, precision approach can work. With all the magical possibilities in this world, stealth should be an option during certain gameplay situations as well. And maybe most importantly, the spell itself needs to matter. Let us do the work and in-game research to figure out which spells work best against various types of enemies. Number 3, replayability. First off, Hogwarts Legacy is an open-world action RPG. Not an MMO. I know Harry Potter fans want an MMO set in the wizarding world, but that is not what this game is intended to be. So we can't go in expecting near unlimited replay value with years and years of updates ahead. That being said, I do think there are plenty of steps Avalanche can take to ensure this is an experience and a world we want to get lost in for hours on end. Hogwarts needs to feel alive and vibrant, rich with specific characters we can get to know, and not packed with too many generic NPCs or standard character models that we see over and over again. The side quests need to be expansive and hopefully story-driven. Try and keep the basic fetch quests to a minimum. Maybe most importantly of all, Hogwarts needs to feel like a fully fleshed out character all on its own. This is where Avalanche can really let their attention to detail of the canon shine, considering we already know so much about Hogwarts. And yet, while Harry Potter games attempted it in the past, we've never been able to freely explore so many of the iconic locations and secret passages we know from the books. Hopefully, the castle is just massive and a place we can truly get lost in exploring at our leisure. Pack in a bunch of epic side quests with moral choices, and I think we'll have a ton of replay value. Number 4, meaningless choices. Speaking of the moral choices, we already know there's going to be a morality system in place for Hogwarts Legacy, but these can be tricky to pull off. Having choice in a game certainly isn't a novel idea like it once was, and to that point, gamers have come to expect much more than when morality systems first started becoming a trend. They'll need to make sure our choices aren't meaningless. They'll need to have choices with both short-term and long-term repercussions. Ultimately, we know we'll likely end up as light or dark, but the paths need to feel demonstrably different. This too will help with the replay value. Number 5, invasive microtransactions. In 2020, nothing can ruin a game faster than microtransactions that come off as invasive or exploitative of players. WB Games should absolutely know all about avoiding this when you look back at what happened with Middle-earth Shadow of War. This was, I think, in 2018. The loot boxes in Shadow of War were so poorly received that the developer Monolith ended up convincing WB to have them completely removed from the game. Here's a quote from Monolith. They said, quote, "In order to fully restore the core promise of the Nemesis system, we'll be permanently removing gold, war chests, and the market from Shadow of War. This means the option to purchase gold with real-world money and the ability to gain orc followers from war chests will be removed. There will be a specific amount of time given for players to utilize their unused gold. If players have unused gold by the end of the time allotted to spend it, any remaining gold will be converted to in-game items." Close quote. Look, to be honest, I actually think they could pull off special skins or maybe customizable brooms, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I'd much rather they pack all of that into the main game and maybe go the story DLC route if they really want to keep players engaged for even longer and have that possibility of an additional revenue stream down the line. I certainly have high hopes for Hogwarts Legacy, and I know this is a passion project for the team at Avalanche. It's a huge opportunity for them to create something truly special. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.